Liz Cheney is out on the stump campaigning for Kamala Harris. It's unclear what this is supposed to accomplish. Who is Liz Cheney supposed to appeal to? Which group of voters will be persuaded to vote for Kamala because Liz Cheney told them to? Nobody knows for sure, probably because those voters don't exist. Nonetheless, Cheney sat down with Kamala for a town hall discussion in Michigan this week. At least they called it a town hall. Usually a town hall, though, means that the audience can ask questions. That's the point of a town hall. That's what a town hall is. That's why it's called a town hall. It's supposed to be an opportunity for the town to speak. But the host of the fake town hall, Maria Shriver, explained ahead of time that nobody in the audience will actually be allowed to ask Kamala any questions. Listen.
You're not, unfortunately. We have some predetermined questions, and hopefully I'll be able to ask some of the questions that might be in your head. I hope so.
So they have predetermined questions. Hopefully, Maria Shriver explains, those predetermined questions will be the same ones you have in your head. And if they aren't, too bad. Just sit there and shut up. The peasants will not be allowed to speak. Instead, the three women on the stage, Kamala Harris, Maria Shriver, and Liz Cheney, did all the talking. Now, they didn't actually say anything. No authentic human thoughts were expressed, but they did talk a lot. And towards the end of the event, Liz Cheney gave her closing pitch for Kamala. And the campaign liked this bit so much that they clipped it and they posted it to Twitter. But I think there are some problems with the pitch. Here it is.
I will just end this by saying, and I also know, because I have spent time with Vice President Harris, because I have come to understand what she believes about how she will govern, that she will be a president for all Americans, that she's committed to listening and committed to having viewpoints, some of which, come from different ends of the political spectrum. And if you think about how you conduct, your life outside of politics, how we all conduct our everyday lives, those are the kinds of people that you trust. Those are the kinds of people you can work with. Like if you wouldn't hire somebody to babysit your kids, you shouldn't make that guy the president of the United States. That's pretty basic.
So if you wouldn't hire someone to babysit your kids, you shouldn't make them president of the United States. That's the big applause line at the end there. And the implication is that you would hire Kamala and you wouldn't hire Trump. But there are a lot of reasons why this argument doesn't work. For one thing, this is a very awkward point to raise when Kamala Harris is sitting right there on the stage. As everyone knows, the number one rule when hiring a babysitter is to make sure that you keep Kamala's husband as far from her as possible. Doug, after all, has his own philosophy when it comes to babysitters. As he always says, if you wouldn't want to get someone pregnant, you shouldn't hire them to babysit your kids. In fact, as it happens, Maria Shriver's ex-husband had a very similar approach to house cleaners. So it's a really weird thing happening here. But putting all that to the side, I actually wouldn't want Kamala to babysit my kids. And not just because I'm afraid that her husband might come over and complicate matters. Kamala has no children of her own. There's nothing maternal about her. And when I'm looking for a babysitter for my kids, I'm definitely not looking for a weird, cackling spinster like Kamala. Especially not one that's rabidly pro-abortion, as Kamala is, because that tells me that she doesn't value human life and has a special disregard for the lives of children. And yet here I am wanting her to take care of my children, so I wouldn't want that. Now, Trump, on the other hand, is a grandfather with 5 kids of his own and 10 grandchildren. His children are all adults now and are still close with him and speak highly of him. You can tell a lot about a man based on how his adult children treat him and talk about him. In fact, that is a much better litmus test than the one that Liz Cheney is proposing. All that said, would I hire Donald Trump to babysit my kids? Well, the answer is no, because I wouldn't hire any man to babysit my kids. More importantly, this has nothing to do with the presidency. I am not looking for a president that has the same qualities as a babysitter. And I'm not looking for a babysitter that has the same qualities as a president. It's extremely revealing that Cheney conflates these two positions in her mind. Never mind the fact that Kamala would make both a terrible babysitter and a terrible president. The point is that presidents are not babysitters. And the qualifications and character traits needed to perform either job hardly overlap at all. Let's talk about something that affects all of us, taxes. The October 15th deadline has passed, and if you're not prepared, you could be in for a world of hurt. Do you owe back taxes? Are your returns still unfiled? Did you miss the deadline to file for an extension? Now that we're past October 15th, the IRS is probably gearing up for some aggressive enforcement, and trust me, you don't want to be on their radar. We're talking wage garnishments, frozen bank accounts, or even property seizures. It's not pretty, folks, but before you start panicking, there's still hope. Tax Network USA has helped taxpayers save over $1 billion in tax debt and filed over 10,000 tax returns. These guys specialize in reducing tax burdens for hardworking Americans like you. Look, I get it. Dealing with the IRS is about as fun as a root canal, but ignoring the problem won't make it go away. So here's what you need to do. Don't wait any longer for a complimentary consultation. Call today at 1-800-958-1000 or visit their website at tnusa.com/Walsh. Their experts will walk you through a few simple questions to see how much you can save. That's 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Walsh today. Don't let the IRS take advantage of you. Get the help you need with Tax Network USA. I want a president who is tough, practical, pragmatic when necessary, one who can effectively delegate, someone who can handle multiple large-scale problems at the same time, a president who can both negotiate and wield authority and who knows when to do either of those things and how. A president should be resilient and resourceful, intelligent, not overly emotional. President should command respect. And we're just speaking in the, sort of the broadest strokes here. Of course, more specifically, I want a president who's willing and able to secure the border, protect our national sovereignty, restore law and order, keep us out of foreign wars, decimate the federal bureaucracy, and so on. Now, when it comes to a babysitter, I'm not really expecting them to do any of those things. In fact, I don't much care what my babysitter thinks about the situation on the southern border, and I don't need or even want her to possess most of the crucial personality traits that I want a president to have. Instead, I want a babysitter to be kind, empathetic, caring, maternal. I don't really want any of that necessarily, certainly not in the same way in a president. Now, yes, I want both the babysitter and the president to be competent, but that competence takes on very different forms. I want them both to be intelligent, but it's a very different kind of intelligence. I want them both to be responsible, but again, the responsibilities are very different. A president is focused on large-scale problems. A babysitter should be focused on problems in really the smallest and most personal scale. How many of the great presidents and leaders of history, whether they were president or not, were former babysitters? How many of them would have made good babysitters? Teddy Roosevelt was a great leader, but I'd probably prefer some random 22-year-old woman as a babysitter over him. Likewise, I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable going out to dinner with my wife and leaving Winston Churchill or George Washington or Julius Caesar in charge of the kids for the evening. Those men can lead armies and countries and empires. Can they change diapers? Probably not. George Patton was a great leader. How would he handle a nanny gig? Not well, I imagine. Who would I trust to feed my toddlers and put them to bed? A 19-year-old girl referred to us by a family friend or Abraham Lincoln? Probably the former. Does that mean that the 19-year-old girl would make a great president? Almost certainly not. In fact, my 11-year-old daughter isn't old enough to babysit by herself at this age, but she is very good at taking care of her younger siblings. Is she qualified to be president at this point? I mean, more than Kamala Harris, yeah, I'd vote for her over Kamala Harris. But that's a low bar. So I probably spent more time debunking this point than was necessary, but it is important because it shows that the Kamala campaign doesn't understand, even in theory, what sort of qualities are necessary to lead a country. Now, of course, there's been an effort for decades now to turn our political leaders into glorified nannies. That's why they call it the nanny state. And now they're taking it very literally, which is bad for the country, but it does make Doug Emhoff pretty excited. And that is why Liz Cheney and I guess Doug Emhoff are today canceled. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.